I'm Katrina, and this is Sew and Tare. Today we're going to be making flan, and it is so awesome. I'm going to be using this book, and the recipe that's in it is awesome. It's turned out well every single time I've made it, and it is the vanilla flavored caramel custard. And this recipe turns out great. Don't overcook it, because that, in the notes in that book, it says a lot about what happens with overcooking, and the texture changes if it overcooks. So follow along. I'm going to be actually using milk and reducing it. So you're making evaporated milk is what you're making. A lot of flan recipes call for evaporated milk, but with this one you actually make the evaporated milk yourself with sugar and milk. So we're going to be starting with 2 quarts of milk and 1 cup of sugar. A quart is 4 cups, so that's 8 cups of milk, or a half gallon. So that's what I'm going to be starting with. We're going to bring that up to a soft boil and hang it there for 45 minutes. And by then it should be reduced by half in volume. So that is the first step. And this recipe also uses eggs. So because we have both quail and chicken, I'm going to be using both. For my calculations, 1 chicken egg equals 4 quail eggs, and that is a little bit heavy on the yolk, but that's okay. So I'm going to be using, in place of whole eggs, I'm going to be using whole quail eggs. And in place of where there's just calls for yolk, I'm going to just use chicken yolks. So it's easier to get the yolk out of a chicken and egg than it is a quail egg for me at this point. So that's what we're gonna do, and I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Here is our 8 cups of milk. It's 2 quarts, and we're just going to turn this on and bring it up to a very soft boil. And when we do this, whenever you work with milk directly on a stove and not on a double boiler or something, you need to be stirring it, otherwise it's going to burn. So that happens very quickly. So go ahead, and we're going to be stirring this every so often just to make sure that it's not burning on the bottom. Adding the sugar, 1 cup. And we're going to stir this pretty frequently. Whenever you have milk and it is not in a double boiler, you really want to make sure you stir it quite frequently so it doesn't burn. If you don't do that, you're going to get scalded milk, and it's going to, depending on how much you scald it, it could ruin the recipe. This is important. Now, while that milk and sugar is coming up to a boil, I have it a little bit over medium heat. I don't like to rush milk when I heat it up. While we're doing that, we're going to make the caramel. Now, some of you might know this, some of you might not, so I'm going to say it. When making caramel, it's going to be done before you think it is. So that was a cup of sugar. This is 1/3 of a cup of water. Going around the outside first, making sure I get those bits that are going to warm up first, and then any remaining over the middle. When you are making caramel, and I've done like different caramel candies in the past too, when you are making caramel, it is important to do, it is important to pay attention to the color of your caramel, because when you take it off the heat, after you take it off the heat, it can still burn. So, because it's still cooking. So you want to take it off the heat before it burns. I'm going to pour it over and mix this in. All caramel is sugar and water. And you can add things to it if you're just making caramel. Regular caramel, you can add flavorings and other ingredients to it as well if you'd like. But as far as making caramel for this. That is it. We are heating our caramel over medium heat, and you do not stir caramel when it is caramelizing. So that's the difference. You do not stir your caramel, and you do stir your milk. Here's how the milk's coming along. You can see it's getting a little bit frothy on the top. And I've been stirring it every once in a while. Here's the caramel cooking on fast mode. While the caramel is doing its thing, you're going to want to get out whatever you're putting your flan in. I choose to make it in an Anchor or Pyrex container, and then I always have a spare one for in case there's a little extra that needs to happen. So be prepared for that, and as soon as this caramel is ready, we are going to be putting it into these pans, or into these dishes. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit of color, and that color is going to be developing pretty quickly. So in order to make it not overcook, we're going to swirl it constantly. And what you're doing is you're moving it enough so that it doesn't burn quickly. So you can see this color develop very, very quickly. And we're looking for a deep amber color. Some people like a little bit more of a burnt flavor on the flan than some other people. It is part of it to be a little bit burnt tasting. It's not going to taste like it's like wrong, but have a little bit of that flavor. All right. Not quite deep enough yet. You can see how quickly this goes and why it's important to keep it moving. When it reaches this amber stage, it also, you begin to smell it more. It smells more like caramel. But there's a fine point between caramel and throwing it away. This is your arm workout for the day. Don't forget to stir your milk concoction either. Alright, I think we're ready. Take it over here and pour it in. Now the sugar, hot sugar, is probably the hottest thing you're going to get in a kitchen. Do not burn yourself. Talking about not burning yourself, always use hot pads when you do this part. What we're doing is we're taking this and we're coating it. So if you've ever coated, like if you're baking and you coat with oil and then you coat again with flour, this is kind of what you're doing. But what this does is when it's going to solidify pretty quickly, but when it bakes, it will liquefy. You guys can't even see what I'm doing. When it bakes, it will liquefy. And then when you pour it, when it cools, it will actually separate from the glass. And then when you go to pour it out, it will be an easy pour. But definitely be careful with this. Don't spill it. And I'm actually going to pour the remainder of this into this little one that I have here. Now you can make this in little cups, in big containers. You can make it however you want. But just make sure that if you are doing this, so like that's already solidified, we're not going to get any more of that. So if I did want to make more of that, I could make more. Alright, so here is our dish coated with the caramel, and this is our spare dish, and I was trying to coat it as well. Because I have time for the milk and I have sugar and water, I'm going to make another batch of the caramel and put it in here and maybe do another one. So when you make another batch, okay, there's our caramel thing. You do not just want to pour sugar on there and water on there, because this is already partway cooked. If you do that, you will burn it. I'm talking from experience. So you want to start the process over again if you're going to do that with a clean pan. So I think I'm going to do that just so I have enough to do another one. And we'll go from there. Now I'll be using both chicken and quail eggs. And this calls for 6 eggs and 6 egg yolks. So 12 eggs total. And this recipe is for chicken eggs, like most recipes are. So 6 times 4 is 24. So we have 24 quail eggs. And again, I'm using the yolks of the chicken eggs. And for me, this is about 2 days worth of chicken eggs and 1 day's worth of, almost 1 day's worth of quail eggs. So it's a really doable recipe for me. I wash these. I always wash my eggs because I know where they come out of. They are fresh, and you can see sometimes they don't come out quite as clean as you'd like. So I always wash them first, and then I'll show you how I'm going to use them. So here are my washed eggs, and they're going to go into this bowl that is for my mixer. Let's see if we can get you guys a closer shot. I just wanted you guys to see what happens as this caramel is cooling. It's cracking. And that's because heat expands and then cooling contracts. So it's getting smaller, and that's why it's cracking. That's normal. And it won't affect the flan at all negatively. It's a normal part of caramel. Alright, let's get to opening some eggs. I like to use these quail egg scissors to open up my quail eggs, and there's a link in the description. You can get these. It is so much better than not having them. So you just put it on, press down just a little bit, and cut off the top. And there you go. I cut the large end of the egg. That way it, that's the end that is where the egg yolk is, or where the air sac is. It's also thick, so you can actually get stuff out easier. Now this 4 quail eggs to 1 chicken egg ratio is for my own quail. I did measure it, and it's a little yolk heavy, but it's alright. And these are jumbo eggs. Standard eggs might give you a different measurement. And I need to stop and stir my milk. "24 quail eggs." Okay, let's see if I can do this. Because I am saving my eggshells for crafts, I got an egg topper for chicken eggs. This part goes on the big side of the egg, which our ladies are laying a little oblong right now. And then this comes up and spring loads down. So I'm going to firmly hold it. See how I can do this in front of the camera. I hold it on there, pull up, and let go. And it should come off right there. Now I am separating out the yolk, so I'm saving the whites for something else. Not sure what yet, but I am. And pretty simple right there. There's 1 yolk. Something neat about this that you can do, and this is also in the description. This layer right here, you can pull that right out when it's fresh, and you can use that for whatever you want without this layer in there. So that's kind of cool. And same thing with this little one. I got just like today, but you guys see, let me know. There you go. See, now that I just got the shell, it still has the membrane, so that's kind of fun. Oops, hold on, right. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these spent shells to pour into. We have our 24 quail eggs, which is equal to 6 chicken eggs, plus 6 chicken yolks. We're adding a teaspoon of vanilla. And before we get into this, I need to put water in the tea kettle going and get the oven to 350 degrees. All right, we're back. I have put 2 baking dishes into the oven while it's preheating, and I've put hot water, or put water into the tea kettle to get hot, and while those pans are preheating and the water's heating up, we're going to be doing the eggs. So we've put everything in there. Now we need to mix it all up. It just needs to be mixed until it's liquidy. Maybe a little more. So we're not trying to whip it, we're just mixing it. I think that looks about right. Next we're going to test and see how much liquid there is in this milk. So we're going for it to be reduced by half. Again, we put in 2 quarts of milk, and we want to get out of that 1 quart of milk. And well, this is going to be my best measure, is my Vitamix. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to measure with. All right, here we go. Measuring. Turn off the heat first. See how far it's reduced. So we're not quite there yet. Okay, we're gonna keep going. That much more needs to be reduced. So I think I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit. And we will pour that back. Now it's taking a long time because I did heat it slowly. You don't have to heat it slowly. I just prefer to always heat milk slowly. It seems to return a better product. Alright guys, I want you to see the difference here. I did end up making a second batch of caramel and I did not let it go long enough. It's okay. It's not going to taste quite like caramel. This is the correct color that you're wanting, and this is not. So it was more amber looking, but it wasn't quite dark enough. This is how that relates. This is the one that is correct. Remember, we put a little blob in this one and it's kind of sugar crystallized around. That's not correct. And this is also not correct, but it doesn't have the sugar crystals that the first one does. So this one might turn out okay. You can kind of see it's a little more cleared. This one's probably going to taste a little weird, but it'll still be edible. And that is going to be what you typically want for a flan. Alright, let's change color a little bit. Let's see if it is ready. It's a little less than 1 quart, so it'll do. Alright, back to over here. And we're going to be adding this slowly to this mixture. I'm going to re-mix these guys just to get things started. And we're going to very slowly pour in the hot milk, which also has sugar. What we're making here is basically custard. That's basically what flan is a custard. Alright, that is poured in. I'm going to rinse this because I'm going to use it again. Alright, anytime you heat milk, you're going to have this like film on it. And that is exactly what we want to be taking off. Putting this through a sieve, and that will catch all of those bits that we don't want. Now I'm just softly moving this. If you put too much liquid in the sieve, then it's going to be a longer process. It's best to do it a bit at a time. Now I'm gonna rinse this once this part is through, just because it's getting thick on the actual screen. Just so it doesn't take as long. Alright, I'm gonna put that rinsing. Now these little bits taste really good too, so you can eat them. Alright, now it's time to fill our flan dishes. Really easy to do with a pitcher. I'm just going to go to there. I've already put some water into these pans. You're actually supposed to add it after, but I didn't. And we're going to set this in here. In the center. And same goes for these in the other one. Now, we definitely don't have enough water yet, so I have to heat up some more water. So we're filling these, it's supposed to be 2 inches of water. We're going to call that good enough. And now we cover lightly with foil. This is going to create a kind of a steaming effect. I'm just kind of folding it down with this spatula. And very carefully, because this is now full of very hot water, push back in. And I'm going to have to resettle that foil. Looks like my foil's a little long. All right, there we go. So we're gonna set the timer for 30 minutes and check it then. And how fast it gets done is going to depend on how thick yours is. So if you make yours smaller and taller, then it's going to be taking a little longer. If you make yours larger and more flat, then it'll get done faster. So I'll show you what to do at that point once our 30 minutes are up. Alright, our 30 minutes are up. Opening it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to stick a butter knife in, and if it comes out clean, it's done. If it doesn't, then we'll do a few more minutes. And again, remember that this is full of very hot water. That is definitely not done. So see how it does stuff on there? Definitely not done. The other ones are smaller, but I have a feeling that they are, well, maybe. Let's try another knife. Always use a different knife. Let's try this one first. Yeah, that one's still not. So, I'll give it more time. Alright, that's 10 more minutes. Let's see what we got. And that is getting closer, but not there yet. That one is doing a little bit better. And that one's getting very close, but not quite. Man, I keep saying getting close. One more time. Nope. We're getting really close though with this one. See how it kind of slid off? Now we're poking a whole bunch of holes in these things, but when we present it, it will be on the bottom. So it might look bad now, but no one's gonna see it. All right, there you go. Clean knife. Back one's ready. Mostly clean. It'll be ready in a few minutes. So here's the tricky part. That back one is ready. The front one's not yet. It's supposed to all come out in the water, but I'm going to say that one's done enough to come out, because honestly it really is, and we're not sharing that with people. We're sharing the big one with people. So I'm just going to take it out. Now I am going to test this one and see where we are. Okay, so that has some on it, but not a whole lot. I'm going to give it 7 minutes. You can see how many times I've slashed it, but that's going to be on the bottom, so it's okay. Now this is still in that water. You see how much there is? And so we are going to just kind of keep it covered. So we're just going to keep that covered, and we're going to let it sit overnight. And when you pull this kind of thing out of the oven, it's going to continue to cook until it's cool. So it should be cooled and then refrigerated to be cold. But the instructions say to cool it in the water. So you keep the water there. The water has to cool off, and then the flan will cool off. So that actually, that cooling process, it's still cooking. So just take note of that. Look at that. Pretty clean. I'm going to say it's good. Now this one you can kind of see along the edges here where that caramel has kind of made it come apart from the glass. I don't know how well you can see that, but that will be definitely a good thing when it comes time to take this out. Alright, we're going to let this cool. We're going to let this cool for the night, and then in the morning I'll put it into the refrigerator, and then it will get cold. Once it's cold, then that's when it's time to serve it. Here's our completed flan. It was in the refrigerator. It is now completely cooled. And we're ready to turn it over. So you're going to want to take a non-sharp, non-serrated knife or one of these and go around the outside real quick, just to make sure nothing's sticking, and it doesn't really look like much is. Then you put the plate like this, and flip it. Now this might take a little bit of shaking, and you should hear it release. You should hear it release. There we go. So that has fallen down. It looks like some of our caramel got stuck, but that's okay. Our final product, homemade looking and everything. There's our flan.
That looks good.
So I like to have a little bit of lip because you can see that a lot of this caramel sauce is in the edges, and that's just good to do. I hope you enjoy your flan. Like and subscribe and share this with someone who has extra eggs or extra milk. Remember that your baking time will vary based on the thickness of your flan. And so I do 10 to 5 minutes checks. And it's going to depend on your own situation and your own oven. Enjoy making flan.